watching Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Ross Kentner, who is the mayor of Meaford. And boy, we've got quite a list of stuff to talk about. Ross, welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you, David. Good to see you.
Now, Ross, what's happening in Meaford? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I saw recently a police report that said stolen car stolen in Hamilton, recovered in Meaford. Does this mean Meaford's hitting the big time again?
No, we just had our annual report from the OPP at last Monday's council meeting. And in all honesty, crime is down in Meaford. And actually, our good editor at the Meaford Independent took a great deal of joy in that and gave a very, very strong endorsement of, the fact that the community is a safer place than even our near neighbors in Grey County. So
we'll let that one pass, Ross. We'll just let that one pass. In any case, things are happening in Meaford, and I think that if there is one thing that has drawn the public's attention in Meaford over the last month or so, it has to be the TC Energy pumped storage project, because that's taken a lot of time of your council.
Probably the most controversial issue at this point in time. I wouldn't dispute that. So let me tell you that the committee will be selected and can be disbanded by council, and we have to ratify any recommendations that they make. So I really don't understand why two councillors on the committee need to be voting members. But we're having a little tussle with some of my councillors on that. I just want to avoid the impression that we're stacking the deck against the people who have legitimate questions and concerns about this project. So that's sort of where we are at the moment. What I think this committee has such an important role to play. It's not going to be a short-term situation. This committee may last for 5 or 6 years or more. This committee will have such important work to do to take a deep dive into the issues and concerns, and what it really needs to do, it needs to be well orchestrated by a very strong chair who will, in a collaborative manner, work for consensus. We don't want votes on this committee. We don't want to be outvoting the other side of the table. That's not right. What we want is a committee that will work together, and it will take time. And what I'm saying is, the truth of the matter is, there's just no need for, like, I will be on the committee ex officio. I won't have a vote. And I think if we have 2 more councillors on it, they don't need a vote either, because this is just discussing and making recommendations to council, which council either can accept or reject. And as I say, at the end of the day, council, is in a position, if this is really working against the best interests of our municipality and our citizens, then we can just, put the lid on it.
It's interesting you say that, Ross, because I recall from one of the very early conversations we had after you were, it might have even gone back when you were, no, it wouldn't have been when you were a councillor, but certainly when you were elected mayor, you did say very clearly that anything had to be in the best interests of the people of Meaford. And that was one of the unequivocal. It's rare that a politician will make an unequivocal statement, but you did. You said very clearly that's the guiding principle, in the best interests of the people of Meaford. So it sounds like that's what the committee is hoping to do. Now, the other thing that you just mentioned is that this could be 5 or 6 years. So it's possible that the committee will be existing in the next term of council.
Yes, and it's entirely possible that the committee that finishes this job will be a different committee from that starts it. But the opportunity, I think, will be there for people to be there for the entire tenure as well. It's just in every case as far as I'm aware, of a mega project happening in a municipality, there is a committee such as this, which is at arm's length from council and certainly is not dominated by the proponent. And that's been part of the discussions because the proponent wanted a seat at the table. But at the end of the day, this is our committee, and it's there to perform a very important function, and that is to educate themselves and the community to all the ins and outs of this. There is so much misinformation out there, and it's so important that a group of citizens comes together, addresses this properly, and gets to the bottom of the various contentious issues that exist, and move us forward.
Mm-hmm. Is it? I mean, there's still a lot of approvals which have to happen. The province, the IESO has said yes, proceed, and that was I believe it was the minister who said, yeah, get going, but. And there's still a DND that has to step up. The feds have to step up. Sagi Ojibwe Nation has to give its approval. I mean, there's a lot of steps yet.
There are a lot of steps. It's as TCE is fond of saying, it's early days yet. I think the DND has made its decision. I think that SON is going to make its decision, but I've heard Chief Najuan say that they are impressed with both the project and the approach that TC Energy has made to them. So I think that's significant. We had originally approved it on the basis that it passed all the environmental tests. And then when we actually signed on as a willing host, we attached a whole list of other conditions. And these conditions are all key milestones. If the project fails to pass the environmental tests, then our support vanishes. And I just believe, and as I've always said, Meaford was falling behind. We really need to be ready should this happen. And it is no more certain today than it was a year ago. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, if nothing else, it makes for a lot of conversation in the downtown coffee shops.
It does, and I feel bad that the way this was done was through an open council meeting, and there was a lot of debate. And I think I call it depoliticizing the committee. Instead of saying, we want a representative of the Chamber of Commerce, we want, 3 representatives of Save Georgian Bay, we want somebody who's under 25 and so on. They threw all that out the window during that session a week ago. But that didn't mean that they were saying no to people who are in the Save Georgian Bay camp, not at all. But Save Georgian Bay has published a news release saying, that we have, closed the door to their participation. That's just simply not the case. I've made them aware of it, but they have not chosen to retract what they said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I have a suspicion, Ross, that our future conversations on Politically Speaking will include a segment on the TC Energy project.
Right. Good enough.
Well, and I mean, speaking of universal subjects for discussion, one of I was almost going to say fun things, but it isn't. Significant things that we have here in conversation is the annual budget, which is exactly. a 6-letter. Forget the 4-letter words. This is a 6-letter word that gets passions and emotions running very high this year. Other years in across Grey Bruce, it's been less, but certainly I have to say that budget has been a hot topic. Doesn't matter what the municipality is, or even whether it's at the upper tier, it's a hot topic. So what's
It is.
happening with the
And
budget in Meaford?
I went into the budget process kind of dreading it. It actually starts before the fall of the year before. And I start getting the jitters then, you know what I mean? And thinking, oh my God, and it goes on and on and on and on. And so we are going to pass our budget, I believe, on Monday, March 11th. And I am thrilled that the after growth, our tax increase will be 2.88%. And that is the second lowest in Grey County after Owen Sound. And I just want to say that we have a capital budget this year of $17 million. And to think that we're getting all this work done and increasing taxes only 2.88%, I owe it all to our staff. And I will say too, they made this process so much easier than it has been in the past. In my experience, I've only been through, this is my 6th year on council, so that's roughly 6 budgets. And this has been a treat. Staff, I think, listened to council and brought in a very, very reasonable budget. But the other thing is that is so important to understand, because I think you've heard, it's not rumors, a lot of first-tier municipalities in Grey are bringing in tax increases of 6, 7, 8% and more. Several years ago, and before my time, so I'm going to say maybe how many? At least for 3 terms, I believe, Meaford has been adding 2.5%. They started out with 2% actually, and then about 3 or 4 years ago, increased it to 2.5%, 1% for roads, 1% for bridges, 0.5% for facilities. And what this has done is just really transformed the whole process, because it means that you build, like we're now standing on the shoulders of previous councils, really is what I'm saying, and we can fund the infrastructure needs of the municipality without having large tax increases. I hate to say it, but it is that the municipalities who are suffering now are the municipalities that had 1.5%, 2%, and 3% increases year after year after year. And they were doing that in lieu of fixing their infrastructure. And you got to understand, I mean, Meaford is 150 years old this year as a municipality, like the town of Meaford. We have a lot of very old infrastructure. We're going to be rebuilding Trowbridge Street next year, and everything under the asphalt, sewers, waters, everything there, it was done in, I think, the first decade of the 20th century. No wonder the road is a terror to drive on, you know what I mean? And it's not even safe to walk on the sidewalks because cars are driving through lakes and splashing people. You know, it's a disgrace, but it is going to get fixed. But the whole thing is you have to come to grips with your infrastructure deficit by investing in it, and you have to start early. And that's the secret of why Meaford is able to have a tax increase that is well below inflation at a time when inflation has been out of control.
Interesting you say that about what had happened in the past. Mayor Body of Owen Sound is fond of using the expression, municipalities often borrow from the bank of asphalt, but it really doesn't get you anywhere because you got to pay it back. And it sounds like you are beginning to make deposits in the bank of asphalt.
Yes, I would say that we're actually starting now to see the benefits of a program that was not very popular, understandably, and all of us to a councillor have questioned it each year as we go into our budget setting sessions. But at the end of the day, it has served us so well.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you would say that too, because there was also a time in the past, long before you were on council, when Meaford had 0% tax increase, and that got you into a little difficulty, as I recall.
It definitely did.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're doing is making the investments that are needed. I did speak to one of your colleagues in elsewhere in the county who has a much higher tax increase in that municipality, and I said, "What's the reason? What's the cause?" And basically, it was cost of materials and insurance. That's what was driving their budget. Was the cost of materials for major projects was absolutely astronomical.
Yeah, everything has increased so dramatically. Everyone's aware of the supply chain issues that developed through COVID, and the cost of everything went up. Insurance is a real culprit. There's no doubt about that. And inflation also took hold and has eaten up so much, of our ability to pay our way. What the things that ordinary householders are experiencing are really no different from what municipalities are experiencing, and we're just very, very fortunate that councils over a number of terms have made this investment, and I can see now, the momentum that we've gained and the benefits here. So I highly recommend it. It's kind of tough medicine, but as I say, the formula is just increase your tax rate by 1% for roads, 1% for bridges. That may not be necessary in every municipality, but Meaford is almost the size of the city of Toronto, as I've said many times. So I think we have on the order of 80 plus bridges, and the vast majority of them are ancient history. One thing that is news, and I am so happy about, is that we, I think, are going to be going to work on the two bridges on the border with Chatsworth, the twin bridges that have been out since I think about 2016, like closed down. A terrible problem for farmers who have to use very dangerous hills as workarounds. And we finally got this project on the rails, and we've done it in part by looking outside the box and finding a contractor who is interested in alternative forms of bridge building. I think that we're going to find that we end up, well, I can tell you, we believe this is going to run just about half what we were quoted 2 years ago. So that's, a complete reversal of what most people are experiencing. But I think it's a combination of having, looked at a different type of solution.
What do you mean by outside the box and a different way of doing the work? Without getting into the weeds.
I haven't followed this as closely as I should, because it's been an ongoing thing. But I think we're looking at the normal way is you spend now, I would say, probably half of your budget on engineering, and then you spend the other half on the work, plus all that you spend on environmental assessments and so on and so forth. In this situation, I think we are buying probably a prefabricated structure, and two of them. So at any rate, I'll make you a promise to give you more information on this next time around. But the amazing thing is that we're finally getting it done. And as I say, at about half of what we were quoted 2 years ago. And again, I have to salute staff because I feel for a long time staff felt that this was a lost cause. But the people in that area, Wagner area farmers, are very, very serious about getting this route back in service, and council has been behind them. It's taken a while, but staff has been behind them in the last 2 years, and I think they've moved the needle on this, and I think we're finally going to see the project underway.
Good. Well, one of the budget things that this spring has, or this winter, has brought about is a significant lack of snow. And I'm sure your snow control budget is probably feeling quite positive today.
I hope so. It is. It's been a dreadful winter for winter sports, snowmobiling, skiing, and all of that. Although the skiing, since we've had snowmaking, as long as temperatures are freezing, I think does very well. But really, anybody who doesn't believe in climate change now, I think, has really buried their head a long way in the sand.
Right. And if the long range forecasts are any indication, we're going to have a hot, dry summer. So we shall see.
So what else can we talk about today?
Oh, we got all. Speaking of the environment, I noticed that that you're getting some public electric vehicle charging stations coming to Meaford. That's a partnership, I presume, with a private entity. Is that right?
You know, you know more than I do on this case. What I can tell you is that we have been looking at different ways of doing this. We know that we need the chargers. So the county has one program that we can tap into, and we've signed up for that. And then we have other ways as well. And honestly, I'm unaware of what you're talking about. I can tell you where the chargers will likely go. I think that either the parking lot on Trowbridge Street or the parking lot on Nelson Street, and of course there's always the opportunity, some of these suppliers could partner with private enterprise and put them in places like our mall or things like that.
What about the public library?
The public library has a rather small parking lot. But the Trowbridge Street parking lot is almost directly across from the library. So it's very central.
Yeah.
The library is one of our huge success stories. I'm telling you, it's just so exciting to see the numbers. And we got a report actually from, we have two members of council on the library board, and we had a report this past week, and I'm going to forget the numbers, but it was, I should have pulled them out because it's just so heartwarming to see the success they are having. And you can actually see in the downtown core the difference since the library is open. But it's bringing a lot of people downtown. And if we can talk about growth a bit, I think that a couple of really interesting stories. We have, see if I can find this yet. We've had 2 heritage permits approved recently. And one of them is for such an interesting project. I think I've talked about it before with you, but it's on Collingwood Street. So that's beside the Capitol Theatre, the old Capitol Theatre on the corner of Sykes. And then there were some derelict houses that were torn down about 2 years ago there. And there's 3 buildings proposed. And what I like about them is that they are a combination of housing and retail. And so this will actually be an expansion of Meaford's downtown retail core. And the opportunity for entrepreneurs is that they will be able to have a storefront and their home and parking and everything all under one mortgage, which, is a huge opportunity. It should be a game changer, really. And I don't know of any municipality that really is like us, like a heritage downtown like we have, that they're actually adding to the commercial downtown section. And the good part about this is that the plan is very, very much in keeping with the 19th century, appearance of Meaford's downtown. So very excited about that.
One of the other things that is really big in municipalities is housing. And how are your building permits for housing coming along?
Well, I'll tell you, we tonight we have at 5 o'clock, we have a planning public meeting on a 163 unit subdivision, a brand new subdivision. And not surprising, people are already lining up to depute in opposition to it. And pardon me, I hope you can take that out. Let me clear my throat there. let me just get organized here and I'll get back on track here. Where's that? Yeah, the opposition to this is based on a couple of things. They're saying that this is actually going to be built on really good agricultural land. It is within our primary settlement area, so its purpose is development. But they're saying, well, we would rather swap some, poorer rural land for a subdivision and put this one into agriculture. I think that could be a little bit of a NIMBYist argument, but at the end of the day, they are concerned about wastewater, or at least stormwater, the fact that it's a high water table in the area. And honestly, there's a high water table just about everywhere you go in Meaford. So we'll have to see how this all pans out. But again, it's an example of and this is I think a good subdivision on many bases. It checks all the boxes like density inside the primary settlement area, on town services. I think it's got a lot of advantages, really. But we'll have to see what all the neighbors have to say about it at the public meeting tonight.
Where's the location of this new subdivision? Exactly.
It's called Miller Street. I think it is. Most people would understand where it is better if I said it's on the 1516 side road, and it's before you get to Gardner Street. So it was. I want to say 50 years ago. I remember a chap bought the property and was going to have an orchard, but I don't think he was successful. So,
right. And apples are part of Meaford's reason for being. So
very true. And they're certainly parallel to that. Like if you go on Highway 26, north and south sides, that land is what would you call it? It's like it's special agricultural land, specialty crops, and it's invaluable. There's no question. I'm not sure about the value of this particular property. As I say, it was tried to be an orchard at one time 50 or so years ago, and wasn't successful. In the meantime, it is certainly considered development land at this point in time.
Yeah, and if there's nothing that gets people more, I was going to say antsy, but that's not the right word, more aggrieved, more contentious than the change that we start to see in our communities when what was no longer is, and we get into disagreements about how property or land will be used. I see it all across Grey Bruce.
No question, and I think that it is not easy to see change, but I have to believe that Meaford needs more houses, it needs more jobs, it needs more taxpayers. We're just, in my mind, a little bit underpopulated, especially if you look at the geography of Meaford. 11,500. I think I'll bet you if there was a census today, it would be 12,000. But Meaford can certainly support a lot more residents than it has. The infill opportunities in the urban area are manifold. And actually, in all honesty, this property seems to me to be an example of an infill project.
Sure. Well, Ross, we're going to take a brief break and come back because, hey, other people want to talk to our viewers. So, friends, I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Rogers TV.
We invite you to play What's My Line?
Welcome, Mrs. Baker. Those folks over there need to guess your extraordinary occupation.
Are you an entertainer, Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Do people come to watch you perform?
Yes. Do you travel for work? Yes, I do.
Do you ever wear a special type of costume?
Yes.
Is your job, physical?
Yes, indeed.
Are you a member of a team?
Yes.
Are you a professional baseball player?
Yes, I am.
Created during the Second World War, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League included 68 Canadians. One of its brightest stars was my mother, Saskatchewan's Mary Bonnie Baker, a pioneer for women in sports.
I'm Carol Merton. Please join me for HealthLink, a program connecting home, community, and healthcare. Please join me and watch HealthLink on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm David Shearman. Welcome back to Politically Speaking. My guest is Ross Kentner, who is the mayor of Meaford. I love that alliteration, Ross. I have to say, mayor of Meaford. It's just
Thank you.
rolls off the tongue. Rolls off the tongue. Anyway, Ross, good to have you back.
It's good to be back. I really appreciate the opportunity, David.
Now, I have to raise a question here. When we did our little pre-show check-in, you referred to the Meaford Airport, and my mind kind of went blank. Meaford Airport. Oh, that's
That
the
airport.
Owen Sound Airport. That airport. Yeah.
The airport that Owen Sound didn't want.
Right. So what's the news on that? It's been sold.
It has been, and I'm pretty excited. For one thing, the new owner tells me he hopes to have the restaurant open in May, which is, he's only been there a short time, and that's really good news. And in fact, I was over there recently. Gord Price, the local flying legend, Gord Price, who has given Meaford its own Canada Day Air Show 2 years running now. There's no way you can beat that. Anyway, he invited councillors Forder and Urig to meet the new owner, Rick Horwath, and he asked me out, they asked me out, and it was so exciting. We watched them come in and land and carry out the Tim Hortons coffees that they'd taken off with in Thunder Bay. So this guy is really keen, and I think he is really courting Meaford, and we're sort of courting him too, because why not? This is first of all, this is an important resource for the whole of Grey County and North Grey in particular. The implications for healthcare, for the military, for business, for tourism. And I'm just going to mention a couple of things here. There are really, as he explains to us, there are really very, very few opportunities left for private pilots in the GTA. And so what is happening is that the whole, learn to fly, recreational type of flying is moving out to resort areas just like Meaford. And that's a huge bonus to us. And that can help, support the airport, which will then be able to do all these other jobs that it does so well. I'm very, very excited. I'm also aware that there's a party interested in a fairly major project tied to the airport. But like many things, you do not know until it actually develops whether there's pay dirt there or not. But cross our fingers. I always say for out of every 10 of these, one of them succeeds. So that's good news. I wanted to tell you about a little event that's planned. The Chamber of Commerce called me up not long ago and said, we'd like to have a mayor's breakfast. And I said, I've got a better idea. Why don't you let me set up a panel, and I'll bring the deputy mayor and the interim CAO. And they said, even better. So this will start at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, March the 19th. The idea is that business people are really too busy to support, municipal affairs the way they would like to. But this gives them an opportunity to start a bit early and take in this panel and ask some questions and discuss, any issues they have with us. And then they can still be to work by 9 o'clock. So I'm really looking forward to that and appreciate the initiatives by the Chamber.
That sounds interesting, Ross. It's the kind of thing that certainly business people appreciate, the idea of sitting down and having a one-on-one or a group-on-one with the mayor and members of council. It's one way for you too, as well, to get some honest feedback. I'm sure it'll be honest.
Yeah. Oh no, it will be, and we always do well in these situations because the truth of the matter is there's so much misinformation or lack of information, and just filling those gaps and a chance for a good honest dialogue is always to be appreciated. Something else that's kind of cool, and that is that a Business View magazine is going to profile Meaford fairly soon. I think this is opportune because the agenda of this publication is very much like AMO's agenda, which is pushing senior governments to fund municipalities better. I think everybody knows that the municipal level is the the foundation of our democratic process. And I like to think that there's a lot more democracy in the system where you elect individual councillors and not where you elect party members, as you do provincially and federally. But at any rate, when we did a deputation at Roma a month or two ago, we impressed on the ministers we talked to that Meaford actually has more new homes in our queue, are you ready, than Chatham-Kent and Sarnia, as two examples, those communities have got housing targets from the province. We don't have a housing target, nor do we have the sewage treatment plant capacity to add all of the units in our queue. But people want to live here. They don't necessarily want to move to Sarnia. And I think that, this is an opportunity to get our story out and to impress upon on a more public and visible way, impress the government that, we already have the demand and we have the developers and we have everything except for the sewage treatment capacity. Why wouldn't they help us?
It's interesting you would say that, Ross, about having more housing in line than some of the larger municipalities. One of the things that I think causes a great deal of confusion, and it's unfortunate, is that, this started with Premier Ford walking from Queen's Park to Toronto City Hall to make a $112 million deposit in the Bank of Housing for the City of Toronto. And great pictures of Mr. Ford and Mayor Chow standing back and saying, yeah, this is great stuff. This is good stuff. Well, I'm sure every politician would love to get $112 million. I'm sure you would. But there's no money attached, and because there's no targets to municipalities like Meaford and Owen Sound and Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth and all through Grey County. You don't get a penny. There's no money. And I've had people ask me, how come we don't get money for housing? Well, the question should be asked of our premier or our MPPs.
And I can tell you that municipal councillors are definitely talking to ministers, and they are listening. I think they heard us very clearly. But I think it should shock them to realize that we have all these houses in the queue, and developers wouldn't be building them if they didn't know they could sell them. And the issue is, why would we not, provide the headroom in our sewage plant so that we can accommodate these new residents, and they'll be happier and we'll be happier.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you pointed out in your summary to the budget, in your comments to your budget in Meaford, was that after growth is factored in. And that's a term that I've heard from a number of municipal mayors across Grey County this year, because for the first time, growth is being factored in because it's not insignificant.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I don't think that there is a whole bunch of people out in Grey and Bruce counties. I think I could, go with the larger community and say who really haven't noticed that we're growing. They haven't noticed that they're kind of stuck, maybe at halfway through the last decade, and they think we're stalled. They think we're not progressing. They don't see a future. But believe me, the future is so bright. It's a different world entirely than it was, not that long ago, in that you can work wherever you want. Which means you can live wherever you want. You don't even have to be, in a built up, location. You can live high on a hill. You can live in the middle of a forest. As long as you've got the internet, you can work there. And as I say, we have those kinds of opportunities where people can really escape, the concrete jungle and live wherever they want, on the water, looking over the water, all these opportunities. And I think that people just haven't quite realized that that's happening. The other thing that's going on behind the scene is a place like downtown Meaford is growing quite amazingly. I'll give you an example. One of the or at least heritage permits that were awarded at our last meeting was to develop a property which is right on the main street, and it will, if the owner is successful in attracting a restaurateur, I would say that would be the 7th or 8th restaurant in that block. And it's right opposite Meaford Hall. And there isn't, it's very easy to understand why there's room for another restaurant there, because they can't keep them open long enough to serve the patrons for the hall. All these shows at the hall, we've got tickets almost every month going forward for shows that would cost you $150 or $200 to go to in Toronto, and you can buy your tickets for $30 or $40. It's really awesome. So people, I think, have discovered the advantages of living in a place like Meaford, and they want to come. And it's a matter of we've got all these houses, as I say, 163 going to be discussed tonight, and it's a good mix. It's singles, semis, townhouses, condos, a real mix of housing. And as I say, we need more people. We need more houses for them and jobs for them, and they'll all come together, I think, in the way things are unfolding, where people are not finding the city is either the place that they have to live or the place that they want to live.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, and I think this is true. Anything north of basically Highway 9. That is so true. That is so true. And it doesn't matter. I had to laugh recently. I saw on Facebook a friend had forwarded a picture of a large house in, let's just say, Grey County, and had addressed it to a bunch of friends saying, "Hey, look at what's available up here. Why don't you come up and join us?" And that's the kind of sales pitch that really does bring people. Hey, my friends are here. I like it here. Why don't you join us?
Yep.
Join us in Meaford. Join us in Owen Sound. Join us in Markdale.
Yes, we don't have the like a franchise on all the attributes of this area, but I will say we have got a waterfront along Georgian Bay and also on Owen Sound Bay. We have frontage on Highway 26 and Highway 6 and 10. So I also think that it's possible that we can attract more industry to this area, and I'm sure we're going to get it because, as I say, it's not necessary to be located in the city at all.
For sure. Well, it'll be interesting to see how these housing developments come forward.
Yes, and I think that I think this is one of the developments that I think, on the surface anyway, I'm not prejudging, but I think it has a lot to offer, and I think that people are going to see. For example, I heard a discussion this morning about the hotel at the Skydev development on the shore in Meaford. If what I'm hearing is right, I think that Meaford is going to have an amazing asset there.
Wonderful. Well, I've heard it said by people in the accommodation industry and the tourism industry, we have a real shortage of accommodations in Grey County, particularly on the northern end. And we can't host hockey tournaments or ball tournaments or have special events because there's not enough hotels, and our short-term accommodations are part of that mix as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
we will. By the way, I haven't heard much about it just in the last few weeks, but I'm pretty sure we will have our short-term accommodation bylaw in place for May 24. I certainly hope so, and I think that what I would say about it is we will likely do this by degrees, as most municipalities are. Nobody wants to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. But I think that we have to definitely start making it clear that we are serious about protecting the rights of other homeowners.
Sure.
I don't take too very seriously the argument that these short-term rentals are taking housing out of the actual the housing supply. I don't think that it's reached that point in our area, but I do think that we do need some regulation, and it's time.
Sure. Well, speaking of housing, one of the events that is just wrapped up and with incredible success across Grey and Bruce is the coldest night of the year. And this was Meaford had its first coldest night of the year walk. And I'm looking at, between the four walks in Grey Bruce that were organized by the United Way of Bruce Grey, over $100,000 was raised. That's excellent. That's wonderful.
It's a reflection of both the volunteer spirit and the generosity of people in the area. And Meaford, I told them I had a chance to say a few words, and I did walk myself that evening. It was a lovely, sunny for the walk. It started at 5 o'clock and until daylight saving time isn't going to influence daylight at that time of day. It will take it away from us. We'll be waking up to the dark mornings, but at least it was nice, bright, sunny evening. And it was cool. It was maybe the coldest night of the year, and we had a brisk walk and raised all that money. And I'm not really surprised because it's an excellent cause, and people are always ready to espouse something like that in Meaford.
Yes, indeed, because homelessness and the need for to keep people housed is something that it's not confined to Owen Sound. It's right across Grey Bruce, and I'm sure you know that from sitting at the county table.
That is where I have learned the most about. I am actually on the Community Services Committee, and that has been a real eye opener for me to just get a handle on how bad the situation is as far as homelessness in our area is concerned, and we just have to really address this and keep on it.
And just to reiterate something that the staff at the county have said, and I know I won't be contradicted. These are our neighbors. These are not people, 95% of the people who are unhoused in Grey Bruce are from Grey County. They have a connection with our community. They're not from elsewhere.
And I want to tell you something else, David, and this won't surprise you, but it may surprise a few people. Back on some of those much colder nights, they put out an alarm from Safe and Sound and asked for warm clothing for people in need. And so Ruth and I scurried around and gathered up some clothes, both men's and women's, and put it in the car, and I dropped it off. It was the county council in the morning, and I dropped it off at 9 o'clock, which was their suggestion. And what a shock when I went in there, because at 9 o'clock in the morning, that it's really a storefront, you know, and it was packed. And I looked around the room, and I want to say the average age would be maybe somewhere between 45 and 70. And people were not just, you know, sitting there or standing there, but some of them were on canes, and some were in wheelchairs, and some with walkers. What a shock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are ordinary people who, of all people, should not be homeless. And I grant you that the problem, the further you dive into this, the deeper the problems go. But at the end of the day, there, but for the grace of God, go I.
And people are people. No,
exactly. So
they're like you and me.
I have a new appreciation for the work that the staff at the County of Grey is doing for the homeless, and really. The flip of that was I learned last week that we have one of the most successful early on programs in the province. Very successful. And again, kudos to our staff. These people, I don't think, quite realize that a lot of the things that used to be the province's are now being paid for by you through your taxes that go to Grey County and also to your own municipality.
Very true. Very true, Ross. The other thing I think that we can give SOS a pat on the back, because they have a location in Meaford every 2 weeks, I believe. And
a wonderful program. Just wonderful. Mm-hmm. And that we should explain a little more, but that is paramedics and their friends, you know, and they arrive with I believe, I don't know where they put it until they get there, but they'll actually wherever they're gathering, they put out some clothes, you know, hangers, so that people can pick something that they might be in need of in terms of clothing, and they get their questioned about their health concerns. It's just a very, very wonderful program.
Indeed. I've had personal interaction with the SOS program down in West Grey, and the same thing. That they don't push anything on anybody, but they are invitational, and the information is there. And people are getting help. I think that's the other thing, is that the people are getting help, and change is happening.
Can we talk a bit about our sesquicentennial?
You were reading my mind. I was just going to ask you about that. The Meaford 150.
Yes. So there's going to be events all year, but Sunday, March 10th is a big day. Activities at the kickoff are going to include selected displays celebrating the history of the community, a townscape where attendees can add a memory. There's children's activities put on by the Scarecrow Invasion and by Beautiful Joe Heritage Society. Cupcakes and hot chocolate. The cupcakes are coming from the Family Resource Center at the Land Forces Training Center in Meaford, and the hot chocolate is served up by the Ladies of Meaford United Church. And then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the formal kickoff ceremony will begin with a program including the Meaford Golden Airs, very, very popular singing group, present and past dignitaries. Guest speaker Jenny Besworth. Do you know Jenny?
No, I don't.
Well, I think she used to be in our Sunday school class, but what I do know is that she is a very successful blogger. Now, I considered myself a broadcaster. I'm not sure whether there's a parallel to bloggers or not. I think bloggers are smarter. Anyway, she's going to be speaking. The Meaford Town Crier will be there, and a surprise guest. And I'm only guessing, but knowing that Councillor Greenfield is involved in these plans, and knowing that he is an historian and a playwright, I wouldn't be surprised if we meet Meaford's first mayor on that.
Ooh.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Now, Ross, you didn't know Meaford's first mayor, I presume. That you know.
I'm old, but not that old. No, I never met him. I'd hate to tell you how many mayors of Meaford I did know and do know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a funny thing that when you start to realize the shoulders on which we stand is quite incredible. And when you start to delve into this municipal history, in fact, I had at lunch today, I was talking to someone in the banking field. And I said, do you realize the history of banking in it happens to be Owen Sound? And he said, no. I said, well, you know Victoria and Gray? Yeah. I said, well, that was the preceding institution to where you are now. And I realized that's an untapped subject. Oh, Richard Thomas, where are you?
That's right.
You know, there is so much history here in Grey County, in Bruce County, that we really, we've just barely started to mine it.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you, Ross, if I didn't remind you that your event on the 10th of March, don't forget, turn your clocks ahead. That's Time Change Sunday.
Yeah.
So if you don't turn your clocks ahead, well, if you snooze, you lose.
Really?
So you do that. You make sure you get your clocks go ahead on Sunday the 10th.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're just about out of time, Ross. So any last thoughts that you wanted to share?
I know that I always wax very enthusiastic about Meaford, but believe me, I feel this way for the entire region. I think we know we're living in God's country, and you know, the opportunities are really quite limitless, and we're so fortunate. I think that I think of all the places that you could live in Canada, even that have disadvantages like forest fires and floods and so on and so forth. We're very, very fortunate, very blessed. And I think that the sky's the limit, but you know, we have to vision it and we have to work for it.
And with that, Ross Kentner, thank you so much, Ross, Mayor of Meaford, and thank you, friends, for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. We'll talk again.
Thank you, David.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Hi, I'm Tiffany James, the host of Her Story. Join us on Rogers TV as I interview various women in our community on how they found success in their own way.
I'm Detective Graff. This is Detective Bateman.
She had access. She had means. She had motive.
We need to win.
We're doing this my way.
Chicago brings out the